of Thrones.
Okay.
Oh, no spoilers there.
No spoilers. No spoilers.
So everybody who's watching right now, we're going live on the air just a few minutes early so we can get set up with all of our live streams. So if you're watching this right now, don't worry, you're not missing anything necessarily. I'm just trying to get us hooked up. And I am. So we're set on Facebook. And then now let's go to Periscope. Awesome.
I hope everyone's having a great Tuesday. It's the week of my annual meeting, which
yes,
you're lucky I'm here. You're lucky that I'm here. But this topic is so good, I couldn't miss it. I dropped what I was doing to sit in here.
You literally did. Thank you for that.
I sure did.
And pardon me, my lips decided to drop all their moisture in the past 30 seconds, so we're good now.
Okay.
I erased my board, so it's a nice clean board.
We're missing out on the board.
I know. I'll put some Post-its up later. I love Post-its.
Oh, look what I got, though. I'm prepared today because if anybody needs to know how to tweet and share our information, I can also do this.
Ooh.
You know what I need? I do need a sign. I need like something behind me that has the hashtag that's just always there.
So
right?
you have a white wall behind you. That's a perfect spot.
I know.
For a logo right there.
Well, I moved my flip chart. I was doing some work earlier and I moved it over here, but that might be the answer, you guys.
How did you find so many orange books? Because that is beautiful. Orange books, and then I see the blue books and the lime green.
Yes.
Well, you should see my other bookshelf. You know what's funny though is that the way I remember books now is I remember them by color, because to find them, instead of thinking like they're all pulled together by subject, like these are all my association related books, and these are the ones that have to do with being an entrepreneur, and these are the literature, these are poetry. Instead of all of that, I think of them as by their color. So if I mess up and I remember them by the wrong color, I'm forever searching in the wrong spot. So anyway.
Oh, it's serious. She's calling.
I know. Watch out. So yeah. So how's everybody doing? And Rebecca, is one of those green books decisive? No, it's not. Perhaps it should be. Do you want to know a book I think that everybody should read besides the book about questions I talk about all the time?
Hey, are you ready to jump on?
This book.
Oh, interesting.
Mind. Yes.
Yeah,
it's very interesting. Yeah.
I was just reading
all right, we'll see
on executive.
You have the link and everything?
And it was a really good book.
Yeah. All right. Is he okay?
We'll see him.
Time. What was that?
We'll see him in a minute.
Okay.
He has 2 kids under 3. I think that's what's going on.
Right.
Yeah. Maybe can we have a video like in like the guy in Korea? Remember the
where the kid
the mom who so happily walked in. I just loved how happy. And then the kid in the what's that thing where they're not walking? The walker. The kid in the walker followed.
Yeah. Well, I told him, it's like, he's welcome to keep it real, because, as a reminder for our speaker today, he and his family live 100% on the road. So they move from hotel to hotel. There's no home base as it were. So I'm kind of curious to see what this living environment looks like.
That is such a challenge. I think that I have a friend who he's a developer, and somehow they travel, and they have 3 boys. Okay. Mm-hmm. And he and his wife, their 2 cats, and their 3 sons travel
cats?
in a huge RV. It's a huge RV, but still, it's something that travels on wheels. And they're traveling all of North America in this thing. And it's amazing. They came through the DC area and we got together. I got to check it out. Like, I mean, it's pretty snazzy, but still, and they're really, when I used to think about homeschooling, I used to think that, you just had a couple programs and the mom had to sit there or the dad had to sit there and like, teach math and stuff. And it's like now they have these online programs. And when you go to the different state capitals, they actually have some of their staff who are part of this program and will teach these history lessons and lessons about each area so that it helps these kids to like earn badges and stuff. It's really cool. It's gotten pretty organized, I think.
My dream in retirement is to live mobily. So like sort of spend 2 weeks to 2 months in different cities. Expensive cities get less time, cheaper cities get more time. Avoid winter.
Are you going to be a snowbird, Ben? You're going to be a
no, because I'm never a snowbird because I'm never where there is snow. I'm in Europe in the spring, then go to.
No, but that's what they call them. They call them snowbirds because
they avoid it.
Because they avoid it.
I wouldn't have a home base. I would have. I would intentionally not have a home base. I would for about 3 to 4 years. I would want to try to spend time living in every city, and then when you have 2 weeks to 2 months, you don't have to rush.
Well, that's true. There's a book that actually it's a book that Tim Ferriss recommends. It's called Vagabonding that I think, that sounds like it'd be the right thing. I have not read it, but he refers to it all the time. And so it makes me think that might be something that would fit the bill. I don't know. We'll see. All right. It's 2:00, you guys. How do you feel about it? What do we have? Let me see down here, make sure our guest is on before we get started. And okay. No, we're still waiting. So if, Tamala and Nabil, if you can help me to keep an eye on that, just to know when we for sure have them on. I want to make sure that we're ready to rock. But as we get started, everyone, I want to welcome all of you. It is another fantastic week in association land, and we are going to go live with Jamin Patel leading our association chat networking boot camp this week. But first, I want to welcome everyone here. If this is your first time to association chat, welcome. Welcome to Association Chat, your weekly online discussion for the association community where we warm ourselves by the virtual fire with the topics of the day, welcoming thought leaders and trailblazers alike to join up in this online home for the community. I'm the host and producer of Association Chat, Kiki L'Italien, and I am here with my fabulous co-hosts, Dr. Nabil El-Garouri and Tamala Blaylock, who is also they're both handling chat conversations, microphone issues, guests showing up. We have an excellent episode planned for you today because, as you know, we have a really big industry conference coming up, ASAE Annual. And part of that, we really wanted to focus on a way to get you prepared, the best that you can be for something that many of us hate, which is networking. But before we get to that, I want to just share with you.
You just logged on, so just so I saw.
Awesome. I'll bring them on when it's about time. Okay, and it's about time. But then, just in case anyone was wondering. All of us at Association Chat, this is a quick word from our sponsors. All of us from Association Chat would like to thank our sponsor, Fontiva, for their continued support. Please visit associationchat.com to find out more about this wonderful company. They've really been there supporting us from the beginning of when we started sponsorships. So thank you. And please let them know online. You can tag them using the hashtag, see how prepared I am. Can you guys see it?
Yes.
Beautiful. Yes.
Allison Chat. Yes. You can let them know that we care about them and that you care about them too. Now let's talk about the news story of the week, you guys. I saw on our Slack channel that there is this interesting article, and Tamala, was it you that found this one?
Absolutely. So I have to preface this by saying this is something I've been preaching, probably the better word is evangelizing about for the past few years. I put it under the guise of sorry, not sorry. So this is, the name of this article is 4 times where you shouldn't apologize. And one of the bylines is including when it's your fault. So number 1, you should not apologize when you're asking for the floor. You need to speak. Go ahead and start with your thoughts. Do not apologize for having an opinion, because that's what the impression that you're leaving. Number 2, do not apologize when you're feeling unsure of yourself. Do not say you're late or, thanks for waiting for me. It's more of, you can set it up by saying that, you have a lot of things to discuss on this issue, or you can just go ahead and throw the issue out there. They don't need to know you're unsure about it. But the whole point is apologize when you're feeling unsure of yourself. You're allowed to have self-confidence because you are a human being. Human beings have emotions. It's how we know we're not robots yet. Number 3, do not apologize when you're about to deliver a zinger, or as I like to call it, throwing shade. I do serve my shade with sugar, but I do not serve it with apologies. So if you have
that is such a quotable
I didn't know that was coming out. I would have had the fan out.
I know.
Yes. Wow. We'll save the fans for another time. So if you have something you want to go out there, tell them, throw your shade, throw your zingers. And last, do not apologize when it's your fault. Now, what they're not saying is if you run into somebody in the hallway, don't apologize for that. If you've missed a deadline, if you are not going to live up to an expectation that you set, give the reason for why that hasn't happened, when you will deliver on it, and move forward. But do not apologize for missing deadlines, or apologize when you can live up to an expectation that you set, because particularly speaking to my women of color or white women in the audience, it diminishes our power unintentionally. And we're more likely to take on more work than we should have anyway.
That was such a surprising one for me, though, because I feel like when I read that, I thought, wow, but I can just picture that if I didn't say it, somebody later would say, and she didn't even say she's sorry, or she didn't even apologize, But we're taught that we're supposed to be nice, right? We're supposed to be nice. And if we're not, we're called something else. And so that was really interesting to me. I wasn't expecting that.
It reminds me of an article that I saw in Entrepreneur a couple years ago about not saying the word just, which if you think about some leaders, they say, well, I just want to add one more point. You don't need to say the word just. I want to add one more point. It diminishes what you're about to say. And I think this is in the same realm of saying I'm sorry diminishes the impact of what you're about to say.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Own your power, or maybe own your Lady Olenna from Game of Thrones.
That's right.
If you're Game of Thrones.
I love that.
Queen of Shade.
Or
Queen of Shade.
Or Lady Mormont.
Gosh. Yeah, Lyanna Mormont. We're Game of Thrones here. We can move on.
Okay, so
and I will say one last thing. I instituted with my board of directors. Anytime that they apologize unnecessarily using one of those rules, at our next board meeting, they're going to have to put a quarter into the unnecessary apologies jar. I'm also going to add just to that rule, so get them ready for our next meeting, which is in a few weeks.
Just, that's a tough one too. I think that if I focused on the apology part of it, that I might slip past the just. I know I do that all the time. I know I do. So, as we were talking about before, in 2 weeks, many of us are in the association industry. And because we're in the association industry, we can't help but hear about this great big meeting that comes up every year, ASA Annual. And so, and Jamin, if you're out there and listening, I see you on. I've invited you on, so it should be connecting you pretty soon, hopefully. But, I think that one of the things that we're going to run into is we're going to find ourselves in these networking events, receptions, one right after another, and just saying that, I know puts many of us into this sort of anxious sort of space where we start to feel the anxiety, we start to get nervous, and we start to wonder, what are we going to talk about? And we think about, some of us think about the things that we hate the most or fear the most about networking. But it's one of the primary reasons that people travel to these conferences, right? It's one of the primary reasons.
Absolutely.
This is where the value is for so many of us. And yet
it worked.
At times, yay, you're here. At times, we find that we are hiding out in our hotel rooms, or we're skipping out on the stuff that we're supposed to go to. And I will admit that this has been me too in the past. And so here we have today with us Jamin Patel. Jamin Patel, he is a TEDx speaker. He is the rock star networker. And so, Jamin, so many of us are scared. We are fearful. We don't want to go into something like ASE Annual and skip out or hide out in our rooms. And so, why do you think some people think that networking is a 4-letter word? Let's just start with that.
Yeah, no, totally. I hear that so much. By the way, can you hear me okay?
We can hear you great. You look awesome.
Okay, perfect. So yeah, it's really funny. Whenever I'm speaking about networking, I'll ask the audience, what does networking mean to you? And everyone will say, building relationships, building my personal brand, making connections. And I'll say, okay, but what else? And then eventually those brave ones will kind of put up their hand and say, it's schmoozing. It's being fake. It's long hours after a full day of activities where I just want to go back and chill out in my hotel room, but I have to go talk to a bunch of strangers in a room and hopefully maybe be impressive so they want to promote me or hire me or partner with me or whatever it might be, right? And it's exhausting. And I think for a lot of people, when they think about networking, they think about it as being this fake version of themselves. And really what I try to teach is how to be authentic when you do it, so it feels energizing. You love what you have to bring to it. And then you get to go tell people about you. It actually becomes really fun, but you got to know how to go do it. Starting conversations with people can be intimidating. And then knowing what to say can be really intimidating. And so I think people just kind of say, you know what, I don't want to go do that. It takes too much energy. It's a 4-letter word. I'm going to try to skip out and go do this other thing. And what's really interesting about that whole process is that, one of the things I've been really fortunate to be able to do in my life a lot is travel. So I used to be a very quiet, introverted. I was a typical Indian engineer. If you've met that guy who's the Indian engineer, that used to be me. So, and now here I am, a TEDx speaker, and I speak around the world. And that process of being a little bit more, internalized or introverted, quiet, shy, reserved, now to being more extroverted, is a small step change process that happened. I think I attribute a lot of it to just traveling, because I'd be, waiting at an airport or a bus stop or a train station, and I'd be kind of bored. So I just start talking to somebody next to me, and I have met some of the most amazing people of my life. Literally just, individuals who have been life partners, business partners, best friends, hired me, partnered with me, all that sort of stuff, just from starting a conversation with a stranger. And so I get really, really energized about who is this next person that I'm going to meet? What kind of magic are they going to bring into my life? I want to go meet them. And so my perspective, having kind of pushed my edge with it over time, has really shifted. And that's what I really like to teach in my workshops, and what I want to talk about today is how to kind of feel more confident in being out there and going to do it. And a lot of it is that context change of making it not fake or boring, but something that's really exciting and energizing that you'll find is an authentic connection to someone else where it's mutually beneficial.
I love that. And what I want to do is I want to challenge you a little bit by I want us to visualize the moment that all of us are going to be facing very soon, where we hear the music, probably too loud. It's pumping in the room, and there are people milling about, and there are people in different groups, and there are lots of strangers. There might be a few pockets of people that we know really well, and we know we should talk to other people and not just them. And so we're walking towards that room. There's the music. Jamin, what am I supposed to be telling myself? And what am I supposed to be looking for to do the right next thing?
Perfect. So there's a few different strategies here. All right. If you're feeling a little bit more bold and you're like, all right, I'm a seasoned networker, I know how to do this, but I'm still feeling like I don't want to be in this room right now, but I know I can go do that. Well, if you're that type of person, all I recommend is what happens is when you go to a networking event and there's the music playing and there's all these people milling around, you kind of create what I call these circles of death, right? So there's like these little circles, crop circles they're called sometimes, or half effects, and they're just these little globules of people, and I call them the circle of death because they are impossible to penetrate. And then once you get stuck in one, they are impossible to leave. Right?
Definitely.
You don't want to get stuck in that trap or that trap. Which one do we go into? And so going in and out of these circles with ease and finesse is one of my favorite parts of the workshop. It's just everyone gets it, and they're just like, oh, it's so hilarious. So here's what I recommend doing. If you see a circle or a group of people that you do want to get into talk with, or there's an individual in that circle that you're like, oh, hey, that's so-and-so, I want to connect with them. Here's what I recommend you do. Kind of get within earshot of that conversation. Not like a creeper, don't like stand there leaning like the Tower of Pisa. The circle. And yeah, exactly. Yeah, I'm like, I've seen those people do that, right? Just waiting to pounce. And then what you do is there'll be 2 moments in those conversations where there will be a lull. And it's just right after or before someone is beginning to speak. And this is the crazy part, but you need to be kind of like a ninja, all right? And what I mean is when you see that little lull in a conversation, the key thing to do is to do this, karate chop, all right? And people are like, karate chop, are you serious? And it worked like a charm. What you do is you put out your hand kind of like a karate chop into the circle and kind of shocks everyone for 1.7 seconds, right? And it's to say, hi, I'm Jamin, I'm blah, 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 whatever the situation or context might be. And then you allow that conversation to continue. You don't want to be that creeper who just stands there and then just stands into the circle and people are talking and all of a sudden you're talking, you don't introduce yourself, right? And especially in a professional context where you're networking and that person you meet might be the next association you go work for, or you might partner with them on something, or whoever it might be, they might become a vendor or a supplier. They want to see you act in a way that they're going to feel confident in how you enter a circle. And so the best thing you can do is simply introduce yourself. And that hand, it's meant to indicate, okay, there's a handshake happening. Okay, somebody's entering the circle. And it actually, it creates this kind of entry point. I was saying, oh, okay, the dynamic is shifting. But the important thing here is that there's a difference between being confident and being rude. So what you do is when you come into the circle, you come in with that confidence, you shake hands with whoever might be there, but you don't shift the conversation away to you, all right? So you allow that dynamic to continue. You can say, hey, I'm Jamin, I'm the new executive director of blah, 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 or association. What are you guys chatting about? Or wherever it might be. And you allow that dynamic to continue, and then slowly you give more information as a conversation goes on. If you come in and say, oh, I'm so-and-so, and here's a topic I want to talk about, and you kind of take a left turn from where they were, then they might kind of give you the side eye and say, all right, no, we don't really want to include that energy. So you got to look at the dynamics, see when there's a good entry point to come in, use the handshake as a physical signal saying, hey, I'm entering. People will really acknowledge that, and they love it. And it feels funny at first. You're like, am I really going to go karate chop? And then after I do an event, people will start doing it, and they'll just start karate chopping everywhere, and they make all these new connections. So, find that ease and finesse with how strongly you want to chop. But
I want to see karate chopping at ASAE.
I want to see the karate chopping at ASAE, but I want to see a video of you doing it because I feel like I'm gonna try to do it. It's kind of like you say, go, you should dance, and then well, I don't dance the way that you dance, so I feel like I could go really wrong with this karate chop thing. But yeah,
should we have a challenge?
If this is a live event,
karate chop.
To show how it works. Yeah. But and the other piece is, again, so if you're feeling like that sounds like a lot, I don't want to get into that right away, all right? So then there's the other type of person who's saying, I do want to go out there and meet people. Looking at those globules or circles of death of individuals out there is a little too much. Here's the other recommendation: to practice. What I say is you can't go from 0 to 60, right? You find your edge and you push it until you feel more comfortable. So take a left turn and go to the bar, go to the buffet table, and now you're standing in line, and now there's kind of like nothing else to do but to introduce yourself to the person in front of you or behind you. So then you can kind of stand there and say, oh, hey, how's it going? Blah, 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 right? And then use the karate chop, but now you're not actually chopping into a circle. It's an individual. You're just extending your hand, and you say, hey, I'm Jamin. 3-word intro. That's all it takes. Of course, it's your name, not Jamin. Replace my name. But it's much, much better to just make sure that what I say is that relationships unfold over 4 stages: awareness, consideration, acknowledgement, and support. And so what I hate is when I'm talking to someone and we're like in line and we haven't yet shared our names with each other, right? We haven't actually created a connection. And we've all done this. We've been on a plane. We sat next to this woman who tells her about her husband and her kids and her divorce and her life, right? And then the plane lands and you don't know what to say. It's like, well, good luck, ma'am. Go get him, girl, because you don't know the name. Yeah. That dirty work done early by having an exchange of names and build that first level of awareness. So once I'm aware, hey, that this is Tamala, and she's aware that this is Jamin, now there's this kind of connection that's being built upon which some sort of relationship can be established. Otherwise, you get to order your drink or you get to end the buffet line, and it's kind of this awkward, see ya, right? And you don't get anywhere, and then you feel not as encouraged the next time. So that 3-word intro with the handshake, super duper powerful.
Could you go through, you said what were the four levels again?
Yeah, definitely. So what I like to do is people think that networking is an art form. Certain people can naturally just do it better. And so what I do is I try to teach the more introverted folks or people who find it boring, and even those who have been doing it forever but haven't contextually thought about it in a framework. And so the framework that I teach is called the relationship hierarchy.
Oh, okay.
And it's those 4 stages, which is the first stage is awareness, then consideration, then acknowledgement, and then support. So you go through those 4 stages. And the reason that I leverage what I call the network like a rock star, that's kind of the presentation that I give at events. And I say it because I'll open up the talk and I'll say, I can summarize my entire presentation in 4 words. Yes, no, maybe, or rock star. And when somebody meets you, especially an influential individual who might be able to help your career, they'll put you in one of those 4 buckets. And what I teach is that being a yes is just, it's like table stakes, because everyone who I've ever met at ASAE for the last 3 years has been fantastic, right? They've all been amazing, outgoing, sociable, smart individuals. And so how do you go from yes to rock star? And that's like the minutia of what I like to teach is those little things that will put you into that different category, from a very confident beginning to a conversation, to sharing your name and making a connection and all that stuff. And so if you want to be in the rock star category, you want to move someone from first being aware of who you are. So being aware that, okay, this person on my screen is Tamala, right? And being able to say, okay, I'm aware of who she is. And then based on maybe the conversation she has with me or the questions she asks with me, I now consider her to be someone who I'm like, oh, I like her style. I want to learn more about her. I want to answer her questions or chat more with her. And then if I get to that point, then I'm like, okay, let me learn information about you and acknowledge who you are. So I'll learn that she was just recently promoted. She's a rock star in her own right in the association world. And now I'll be like, oh, I really acknowledge who you are as a person and professionally. And then after you get to that professional connection, as you all well know on this call, you make that personal connection. And when you find that personal connection of like, oh my God, like I love, Korean fried chicken, or I love the Red Sox, or that personal connection, now it's like you're not just this person who's a professional, you're an individual who's a friend who I can feel connected with, and now you have my support. So you can call me up at 8 a.m. or 11 p.m. and I'll be there to support you. And that's what I really love helping people understand, is that networking will lead you through those 4 stages, and there's different strategies for each stage. But the first stage is the most overlooked, and that's just people chatting without building awareness. And once you have the name connection, then you can go from there. Otherwise, you can't go too far. You lose momentum too soon, and then people feel discouraged. So very easy first step. Start with that 3-word introduction. Tell them your name. 99% of the time, they'll tell you their name back. 1% of the time, they'll look at you kind of funny, and maybe you'll run away. And if that happens,
those are the ones who haven't heard your talk.
What was that?
Those are the ones who haven't heard this talk.
They haven't heard the talk, exactly. But sometimes, I'm not joking, I'll do this at a talk and I'll go out to the audience. I love that interaction, and I'll use a 3-word introduction. And most of the time, people will do it back to me. But then I know if it happens for too long, I'm going to have a presentation where I'm just going to like go down. And then that happens. So I'll go out to the crowd and I'll shake hands with someone. They'll look at me kind of funny. I'll go to the person next to them. They'll be like, and the next person will be like, and none of them will tell me their name back. And it's great because when I fail in front of the audience, they realize I don't burst into a cloud of embarrassment. Right. And then I survive. The next one, and it's all about failing fast. We all know that.
I'm so good.
And the association is friendly for that. I find ASA is always a great event. No one's gonna point you out or whatever. They'll let it slide. It's a really good crowd.
Well, I feel like I'm really good at failing fast. I'm constantly trying to do things and constantly finding my limitations as a human being. But one thing that you were talking about was like going through these interactive parts of your talks and stuff, your workshops when you're working with people. Yeah. And there was a question, and I want to say thanks to all of the people who are typing in and responding. We are reading as many of your comments as we possibly can.
Right.
But one of the people that I saw over here on Facebook Live, she wrote that, well, sometimes, how do you feel about these forced networking moments like icebreakers where we're forced to move about? And in many cases, we can't hear, or et cetera, et cetera. And I'll tell you an example that I recently ran into, which is we had these catch boxes, the catch mics at an event. And we were talking about like throwing them to different people for them to answer, which is a lot of fun. It's very interactive. But one thing that I had an issue with, though, was that you don't know anybody who is going through something, maybe having mobility issues and can't, catch these. If you just throw it to somebody, you don't know that they're going to catch it. Or you could just be klutzy like me and get really nervous. But what about some of these icebreakers and some of these things where people are like, okay, stand up and shake the hand of the next person, the person you're next to. And maybe that's not something you're able to do. Do you,
sure.
What's your view?
I think that's a really great question. And my answer hits a couple different points. So the first thing that's super duper important about that you need to know about networking or building relationships with anyone is that not everyone's going to be your best friend. And consent is really important, right? And so there needs some level of consent. So when you're throwing the mic box, for example, I always point to the person and then kind of give them a nod. If they nod back or say no, then I know to pick another person or do that.
I love
that. So you can use subtle. It doesn't have to be a verbal consent all the time. There's other ways to gain consent. And so if you're tuned into that, I think it's a great point you're bringing up. If you're tuned into that, you can do a little bit of a verbal cue with the person next to you. Just give them a small nod. Look them in the eye. Make eye contact. Give them a small nod, and they'll either nod back or give you a look of fright. And then you want to not pick that person. So I think each of us can take on that responsibility for others, and then each of us can feel okay in a public setting. I think just with the wave of authenticity that's hitting the workplace. My TEDx talk is all about authenticity. And I see it everywhere. And we want more and more everyone to bring their own individual full selves to work or to an event, and especially to the conference, right, to the annual meeting. And so in those cases, if you're not into it, totally cool. Just let that be known and don't feel afraid of sharing that. And other people will actually feel more enabled by you modeling that and know that's okay for them to do that too. So it has to start somewhere, right? So why not you? That's what I always tell people. Why not you? Now the other piece around all of this, right? Now the other piece is that the other angle I want to look at it is from the perspective of if you're at an event like ASAU, for example, at the annual meeting, or any other professional training that you're going to, you're arriving there as a professional. And in a professional capacity, you are always building relationships. And it's important, especially when you move into managerial roles, to be able to, meet those extroverts where they're at and manage them in that way, meet introverts where they're at and manage them in their way, and the full spectrum in the middle. And so if you're in a position where you're looking into leadership or management or moving up or even working cross-functionally, then those types of interactions are really important. And so what I like to tell people is that if you're on this path of leadership or management or moving up, the ladder to where you want to be, that's going to include you being your authentic self, but at the same time learning the skill sets to relate to other individuals where they are. And sometimes it's just about finding your edge. And so when you're in everyone, shake the hand of the person next to you or give them a high five. Those are moments where, you might feel that discomfort. If it's a lot, recognize it and don't do it. But if you feel like, hey, this is my edge, I feel okay here, but not great, try to push that edge, because that's how you grow. And that's how you can become, if you're a more introverted leader, how do you relate more to your extroverted team members or your bosses or cross-functional team members or vendors or suppliers, and meet them where they're at too. So it can be something that, you're forced, and if it feels completely uncomfortable, raise your hand, say a no, use nonverbal cues. But if you feel like it's your edge, push into it and just kind of go with the flow. And if you can't hear what's going on, just say, I can't even hear what's going on. Tell me about who you are, and then just take it into what feels comfortable for you instead of doing what the speaker is telling you to do. So there's different ways to navigate that.
Well, I have a question for you. Before I ask Ray's question, which I feel is of the vintage variety, I want to get back to our people who are still the grapes on the vine when it comes to networking. So we have the karate chop. And, we understand awareness when we introduce our name. But for those of us where this really is, the fact that we're even speaking to a stranger is like leaning in to all of our fears about connecting with people. Can you give some authentic questions that they can ask to start a conversation?
Definitely. So, I think the most important thing is obviously have curiosity. That's really, if you come in and you're like, okay, I'm meeting a person, I'm just doing this, I'm going through the motions, it's really not going to go anywhere. If you're like, hey, this person, I want to learn about this person, whether they have like a bright pink shirt on and you think that's exciting, or they have a great necklace or a cool blazer or whatever it might be. If you're like, okay, I think this person is interesting and I'm curious about them, start there. Don't start with, the usual person where you're like, oh my God, one more person like this that I have to go talk to. So first thing is, be strategic. There's so much strategy in relationship building. And one of them is just, think about who you are really curious about. Once you can talk to that person, here's what happens. I think questions can flow very naturally. There's no silver bullet questions. But what happens is you ask a question, the other person answers it, and then you're stuck. Then you don't know where to go. And it's like, and it becomes like a tennis match. Question, answer, question, answer, question, answer. And then eventually there's no meat there that kind of builds that momentum for it to continue. And so if you find yourself in that position, which I think is way more, happens way more than just, I don't know what to ask at all. You can just say, tell me about your day. How long have you been in Toronto? Where did you come in from? Have you been here before? So those are like the basic questions, right? To answer the post thing that you pose. Once you get past that, here's a trick that works every time. It's all about getting the other person to talk more. So if you, if you say, how long have you been in Toronto? Oh, I got here midweek last week because I wanted to spend some time with my family. And then you're like, oh, well, where did you come? You take the conversation somewhere else, it won't continue. So the trick is to say, oh, tell me more. That's it, 3 words. Tell me more, right? You like how simple these tips are? 3-word intro. Hi, I'm Jamin. And then 3-word question.
Tell me more.
And they'll say, tell me more. We went to the lake. There was this festival for kids, and we found this great playground. Or they'll really open up. And then now you have something else. Oh, you have kids. I have kids too. What playground did you go to? Because next time I come, I might want to bring my kids. How old are your kids? And the conversation goes from there. And if you get stuck, oh, well, tell me more about your kids, right? So the tell me more works every time to get to the level of depth where more consideration can happen. Otherwise, you're staying too far up. So as a tool to get to the next level, tell me more is a very simple way to keep the conversation going and make sure it's exciting.
I love that.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. Well, what I love to do is there's a strategy to networking, but breaking it down to just little simple tools. What I say is small hinges swing big doors. If you make small changes, everyone in here has been networking, right? That's how we all got to where we are in work. And what I find really hilarious is that, we're trained to be, CAEs, we're trained to be accountants, we're trained in marketing. And we also network every minute of our work probably in some capacity, but we're never professionally trained to do that. What I do, I come in and I make it professionally train people on how to actually build relationships, whether it's with new people at conferences, with their coworkers or cross-functional teams, with senior leaders and from sustainability. All those areas is small changes you can make will open up huge doors for you. Even if you've been doing it for 25 years, you can just find that little change and say, oh, that opened that many more doors for me. So it's all about small changes making big impact.
See, I think that that's so important.
Oh, perfect. Well, let me ask Ray's question. I set it up, which is not at all a type A question. How do you know you're doing it right? Is there a pass-fail ratio to achieve in networking?
Definitely, I don't think there's a pass-fail ratio, right? I think more often, if you're doing it the right way, that ratio just increases. If you go in there and you're talking more about you, for example, or yourself, or you're in the search or career search, and you come in with that pitch and you talk for 2 minutes and just lay it on someone, right? All those things will reduce your ratio. And if you start doing it the right way, like a rock star, then it'll increase your ratio. And so it's really just about the way that you approach it. Now, how do you know if you're doing good? Let me just be very clear and say again, not everyone's going to be your best friend. You're not going to hit it off with each person. So go fast and say, hey, I'm getting out of here. So the best way is just look at the nonverbal cues. So and I'll keep it to the setting of the conference itself, the annual meeting. So if you're in the big room, you're talking to an individual, and now all of a sudden their eyes are darting around the room, trying to see what else is going on. They're kind of looking at you, but they're looking more everywhere else. Their body posture kind of opens up more to the room than it has been open to you. Those types of signals are either indicating they're not interested, or maybe they go to the bathroom. A variety of things. You can't take it personally, right?
Right.
It's not you. It's just that connection, and that's okay. So if you find them kind of doing that, then you can kind of gracefully exit out of the conversation. But those nonverbal cues of looking around the room, opening up the body posture, kind of being fidgety, maybe grabbing their phone or having it in their hand, those type of things will indicate, okay, something's not matching here. They don't seem to be interested, especially if they're in a Q&A. They're like short one-word answers, not really driving the conversation forward, not asking questions back with their own curiosity about you. Those are all indicators that it's not going well.
Okay.
And then you take on that that's not working. Move on to the next person, because it'll probably work really well there.
So I have a question about strategy going into it. So say we know, all of us know we're going to be going into these conferences, and we might want to be advancing or moving ahead in our careers. And we know there are certain people we either need to meet, we need to connect with. What is a winning strategy for approaching these networking things where we can plan ahead kind of on, how to engage with these people?
Definitely. So that's a great question. There's so much that I can say about that. And I'll try to pick up the top things that kind of, I think, can really help. So everything we've talked about thus far definitely applies, because now you're in a situation where if you're looking for your own career development, you have to be in that roster category. There are how many thousands of people who will come to the annual meeting? And so if you're talking to those individuals who are maybe going to hire you or promote you or give you a recommendation or whatever it might be, well, then they have way too many people just like you who are coming at them. And so what's really important is to understand their perspective of where they are. And you'll know that unlike you, or just like you, all these other people are also going to be approaching them. And so if you come in and you have that idea of knowing that everyone's going to be a yes, right? If they're already at the conference, if they're already in the association world, and they're already making an impact, well, I mean, that person couldn't go wrong hiring or promoting or recommending any of the people that come talk to him or him or her. But he or she will only be able, and they only have the time and the resources to get to know a few individuals right away. And so what you need to do is very quickly build awareness and then have them consider you to be that rock star candidate. So the way to do that is to have a lot of confidence in the way that you come in, use a 3-word introduction, go right up to them, be curious more about them, and then tell them more about you. A lot of people want to do this idea of the elevator pitch.
Yes.
Now, what I think about the elevator pitch is that you really write a lot of laughs, yeah. I think it's extremely helpful in practice, but not helpful in application. So it's important to take the years of experience that you have and then bring it down and elevate it to that 30 or 40 second kind of high level narrative and knowing what that is. But I don't recommend applying it and going up to someone at an event, shaking their hand, delivering 30 seconds of word vomit about how great you are, and expecting them to be like, oh, you're hired, right? It's not going to actually work.
Yeah.
And so what I do recommend is being in that conversation and having your story prepared, and then taking a chunk of it and opening up the conversation with a chunk of it, and then being curious for the other person to share their story. And you share a chunk of yours, you go back and forth in what's called a dialogue. And what you'll find is that by letting the other person speak first, or more than you might want to, is that you learn things about them that you can say, oh, that's so interesting. I used to be the meeting and events planner for my organization before I moved into this position too. Oh, we have a very similar career trajectory. And now I want to be where you are as a next step. So, if you hear that, then you can actually kind of pivot. You have so many things that we can talk about. But you can pick out those ones that would be most aligned to that person so they feel some connection. And not all it has to be professional. Again, if you love fried chicken or you love the Boston Red Sox, those are great ways to connect and talk about your experiences with those things you love. And at the same time, coming into the position of talking about you personally. Here's the number one mistake that most people make. They go through awareness, consideration, and acknowledgement, and then they'll stop. The senior individual who's influential individual, they will be able to meet you, get to talk to you, and acknowledge key information about you, and then that's how that happens. And that's where people stop. They don't go to that next level of support that I mentioned earlier. And what happens is when you're in a many-to-one or many-to-few scenario, like having one speaker, if you're going to one of the sessions and a whole crowd there, or you're at a networking event where there's many-to-many, right? In those situations, in most cases, you will likely get, at best, through a level of acknowledgement, just because there's too many people around. Support, you have to do that in a one-on-one setting where I have my complete undivided attention to know more about you and your story, tell you more about me and my story, and then find those ways that we personally connect. So the goal of meeting these influential individuals at ASAE is not to have them hire you on the spot, not to have them, take your business card and email you an offer, but to just say, hey, I really love connecting with you. Here's my card, or add me on LinkedIn, and then let's chat some more. And then after ASAE is done, or maybe if you see them at the bar later, that's okay. But after the annual meeting is over, go back to your office and say, hey, Sally, so great to meet you. I'd love to continue part of our conversation. Do you have 15 or 20 minutes to connect sometime this week or next week? Now you get them on the phone, and then you have their one-on-one connection to build that personal level of support. And so what I teach people is that it takes 15 or 20 minutes to get someone converted into becoming your supporter when you can have a one-on-one chat with them. And when that happens, they'll support you in your next step and onwards to all the other steps that you might have. So it's a longer-term strategy. And most people get so like, oh my God, my one and only chance to meet Sally. I'll never get hired. And people guns blazing. And it's too much for that setting. So they're getting overwhelmed too. So just think about where they are. So my strategy, my advice for everyone is to play that long game. Make a really fun connection that Sally or Tom or Amit or Lou, whoever, will all be excited to connect with you after the conference and give you some of their one-on-one time.
And remember your business cards, everyone, please.
Well, speaking of business cards, I hope your name's pronounced Emily. If not, please let me know. Emily asked, if you connect with someone, how do you bring up exchanging business cards and connecting after the conversation? So woman of action, after my own heart right there.
Yeah. So this is great. Okay, this is super sneaky ninja trick. Okay, so the best way to do it is most people want to just keep connecting, and then what happens is you have a really great conversation, and then it just kind of keeps going, and you're like, okay, I should kind of let this person go. I should go. I should give them my card, but I don't know how to end this conversation. So this this is what I recommend doing, especially if you're at a large meeting like the annual meeting for ASA. So you need to first end the conversation, and then when you end it, do the exchange of business cards or add them on LinkedIn. So the best way to do it is to kind of zoom out of your conversation to the situation around you. So you might say something along the lines of, hey, this is so great chatting with you. There's so many people here. Let's go network with some people together. And you kind of take them along with you and then go, right? And then now you have more stuff going on. High five, yeah.
Yes, that's good.
Say something along the lines of, say you really want to have a hard stop and not go too much further. You can say, hey, so great connecting with you. I got to go, back to my room to call my kids or hop on a call or get some work done, whatever it might be. Be honest. Say, but it was so great connecting with you. I'd love to keep chatting. Let's exchange business cards, or can I add you on LinkedIn? So what you want to do is, I always have if it's a more intense activity, I have the rockstar rule of 3. Okay, when you enter that circle of death, if there's a lot of people, or if you're in a one-on-one conversation, you always want to ask one question, because that's going to build consideration, right? You come in with the karate chop handshake. Now I'm aware of who you are. Now I'm expecting you to hit me with your best shot. So ask me some fun question. If you get stuck, always go to tell me more. Then we can get into some depth and connect on something. I'll be like, oh, this person can carry on a conversation. Okay, I like this. I consider you to be someone I might want to hire or hang out with. And then you always want to ask one question. You ideally want to ask 2 questions, which is just the follow-up question, right? So most people will go question A, question 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. But that tell me more, or even better than that. So this is like next level strategy. So tell me more is always good. But if you're in a context where you really want to impress the other individual, once you say tell me more, then what you do is this. You reach back into your skill sets, experiences, accomplishments, and you bring up something that relates to what they just said and package it as a question, right? So you can say something about, tell me more about a project you're working on right now. And they might say, oh yeah, we're doing a whole new rollout for our membership. We're doing XYZ. You say, oh, that's so fascinating. I used to be in charge of membership at the last association I worked for. And one of the key things that we did was drive more membership. But we face this issue of X. How are you handling X, and are you experiencing that?
Yeah.
Boom, what just happened? Through that, now, the influential individual is acknowledging information about your background, skill sets, experiences, seeing that you can relate to their current challenge, and they're like, oh my gosh, I can acknowledge that this person is a rock star because they really get it. So you ideally want to ask 2 questions. And then you never want to ask more than 3 questions. Now, if you're in a one-on-one connection, it's okay to go a little bit further. But why don't you want to ask more than 3 questions if you're in that kind of globule or circle of depth atmosphere?
Because you're dominating.
The reason is you're dominating. Exactly. You nailed it. Yeah. No one wants to be a spotlight hog, or rather hire a spotlight hog. So if you're hogging the spotlight, it's not going to be exciting for anyone in that circle, including the influential individual that you want to try to impress. And so what I say is, you get to that 3rd question and you say, hey, Tamala, I really am loving this conversation about membership, Korean fried chicken, golf, Bollywood dancing, whatever it might be. But I recognize there's a lot of people here who also want to chat with you. Would it be cool for us to maybe just take our conversation offline and chat next week when the meeting is done and we're back home? Oh, great. Okay, well, can I get your business card, or can I add you on LinkedIn? Perfect. I'll be sure to follow up and make sure we get time to chat more about X topic, and I look forward to it. Enjoy the rest of the meeting. I know a lot of people here want your time, and I appreciate what you gave me. Bam. Then you exit, and they're like, wow, that person was so suave. They came in, they told me their name and introduced themselves. They asked great follow-up and in-depth questions. They told me that they my current experience, and they acknowledged that I was in a situation where a lot of people wanted my time, and smoothly exited. Wow, this is the type of person I might want to work with. So that's the strategy for influential individuals who might hire, promote, or recommend you.
I love it. Okay. So thank you. I see that we are a little bit past when we were trying to wrap things up originally. No, but it's so good.
This is so important. This is so important.
Really
I know. Yeah.
And, I wanted to, I just wanted to thank you so much for coming on here, Jamin. And you're going to be at ASA Annual, right?
I will definitely be there. Yeah, yes. I got to speak last year. This year I had a kid and missed the deadline for applying, but I'll just be there kind of as a participant. I mean, it's the best party I think that happens on the planet. It's just so good.
That's how Jamin and I met.
Is it really?
Yeah, that's how we met.
Yep. In Detroit. Yeah.
So wait, you're going to be testing us on our karate chops, right?
I will be. Here I am.
All right.
I always have a blue blazer on. That's kind of my signature blazer. So if you see me around with the blazer on or off, if it's a hot day, do the karate chop. Practice with me if you feel nervous with somebody else. I'll give you some pointers to go and talk to the person you really want to go connect with.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much, Jamin. We will see you in Toronto. And, Tamala, Nabil, what were your top takeaways from this? Because I just think that, we're getting ready to go off there. We are going to have the live association chat broadcast, the live studio audience at ASA Annual. And so we will be doing a lot of networking while we're there. What was one thing that Jamin said that really stuck with you? I'll pick on you, Tamala, first.
Well, I like the arc of how to frame it. I'm really into operation and order. So the awareness, the consideration, the acknowledgement, the support, and then have the exit ready. So I like the framing, like a script. Well, script can keep it authentic. A plan. There we go.
A plan
of engagement when you work. I thought that was really helpful. So that's going to be my main takeaway from that.
Okay, and how about you, Nabil?
I think the tell me more is a great technique, and then limiting it to 3 questions. I think that's really good. But I want to follow up with, I see Randy's on, and I remember she gave me her business card. It was so unique. I still remember it 3 months later. So Randy, I see you on there. You had a very small card. It was very impressive. So thanks for joining us today. But I remember that. And so I think for the strategy for some people who are a little more introverted. So I have some interesting pins and boutonnieres that I wear, and they are conversation starters. So people come up to me to talk about what I'm wearing, and then that starts a conversation. I know our friend Tamala and our friend Desiree, she has these gorgeous pins that she wears.
Yes.
And I mean, feathers, and they match her outfit, and they start conversations. So for introverts here, I think those kind of things sometimes are a great strategy.
Well, and also there is going to be a little bit of association chat swag that you can get. You can get some swag. So look for pins, stickers. The stickers just arrived today. They look like this. Pins, stickers, shirts. And if you see any of us wearing the pin, then definitely come up and say hi too. And that's it.
Yeah, please talk to us at Annual. Please interrupt us.
Yeah.
We are happy to talk to everyone who watches.
Yeah. Absolutely. And then also, if you're watching on Facebook Live, Periscope, or on YouTube this week live, Jamin just wrote this in. I'm sorry, my handwriting is horrible, but it's
Don't apologize. Don't apologize.
Oh, but I just.
No, just did too.
I did just. Do I have to put any money in the jar? I mean, I don't work there. But anyway, I'm sorry. Oh, I'm sorry. I did.
You're sorry that
it's a pattern. No, it's
sorry, not sorry.
You need to break that pattern.
Sorry, not sorry. Yes. So I just want to thank all of you for being here. Like I said, there is the live association chat broadcast that's happening on site. After the closing session, we're going to have limited seating. So we are going to have some information about that on the private Facebook group going out shortly. I mean, real shortly, because we got to get booked.
Yeah.
And then we are going to have some special guests who are there too. And so you need to come by if you possibly can. If you're a fan, if you just want to find out, ask us more questions about the way that we put this thing together, feel free to do it. We'll have a little reception afterwards, and then we'll be on our way. But the whole time we're there, we're going to be practicing this, having a good time, and we really can't wait to see everyone there. I guess it's that time. So until next time, everyone, keep asking questions to learn every day. As Joseph Campbell once said, the cave you fear to enter holds the treasure you seek. Have a great week, everyone.
Bye.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
Bye. See you in Toronto.
Absolutely.
See you in Toronto.
See you in